Yes, welcome back to the second episode of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode, where we're joined for round 2 in Barcelona for the Spanish Grand Prix. Now before we get into the R&D and the management activities, if you do enjoy today's episode, please make sure to hit that like button, and if you are wanting more F1 content, then make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Now let's jump straight into this. As you may have seen at the start of the video, we've been handed our first department event. This is brand new. This is a brand new feature to the F1 2021 game, and as the team owner, you get approached by all your different HQ departments and facilities, asking you to make the big decisions in their specific areas. So, in this case, the personnel department came to myself to make a big decision on Dragocic's future. Now your personnel department focuses on the development of your second driver, and in this case they came to me to say that Shoggz has been really improving in the simulator, and they were wondering where to focus the development, whether in pace or awareness. That now I could get +7 in pace or +7 in awareness, so it's a win-win situation. However, when I'm advancing in the future, these department events may give me harder choices to choose between. In the end, we chose +7 in pace, just because I feel like pace is going to come in more handy than awareness for a young driver this season. But what I found was really annoying in this scenario was I wasn't able to see my driver's stats beforehand. I would have had to memorise them going into that event, which is really annoying. I wish they would have come up on screen, or was able to have the choice to be able to close the event and go and look at the driver's stats and then reopen the event. Whether this is something that needs looking into and fixed in the future for the coders, or is it just something that has been put in the game to make the career mode more challenging? Like, is it so that these big decisions have more of an effect? I don't know. I'd wish there was a bit more information. But yeah, we get another department event for the powertrain this time, asking me whether I would like to receive a cash bonus, or whether that cash would be better invested directly into the facility. So in return, I would get a deduction in one of the R&D upgrades. So yeah, we went with that just because I'm alright for cash at the minute, and I prefer to get the R&D points to be able to spend and upgrade the car quicker, so we can start challenging with our opponents. But yeah, as I was speaking, we get an aerodynamic upgrade come through for the drag reduction side of things, so hopefully that will increase the chances of catching the cars in front of us, like the Aston Martins and AlphaTauris. And yeah, we've also put another upgrade on the aerodynamic side of things, so hopefully that will come through very soon. But as we head into the race weekend, we see that our gearbox upgrade has not come through. This is only a minor upgrade, so hopefully be able to earn our R&D points back very soon to be able to purchase it again. Now, as you see on screen now, I'm messing around with my settings just for a second here, because I went into the multiplayer with a couple of mates of mine, and I think it's altered some of my settings for some reason, and also I played on with more assists as well on multiplayer, just to make things a bit easier for myself. But as I was adjusting that, what I didn't realise in the simulation settings was that car damage has been switched off, which is gutting to say the least, because it just makes this whole episode almost redundant, because it's not going to be as good as the others, and yeah, there's just not going to be as many shocking moments to this episode as there would be to others, which I'm really annoyed about. And like I said, I didn't realise it had been switched off until the actual come the race day. So yeah, this is a lesson learned going forward in the future. Yeah, there's nothing I could do about it. You can't alter it during the race, which is I find really annoying, and it's just messes up the whole consistency of this My Team universe. So yeah, sorry about this episode. It's not as good as the others, but stay tuned for the next episode, as it is Monaco and there will be simulation damage, so prepare yourself for that. But first of all, our focus is on round number 2, where we see a very wet Spanish Grand Prix. Nevertheless, let's jump straight into this race weekend. So it looks as though we've brought the great British weather along with us here to Spain, and if you thought we were going to get a hot holiday abroad, then you'd be completely wrong. As we go into this first corner, just lightly touching the accelerator, just trying not to get on the power too much, as we're just using this lap as a tester lap to try and get a feel for the car, because the last thing you want is to be spinning out in these wet conditions and retiring the car and end up in P22. So gently easing into this first lap would be the best way to go about things, as we almost spin out on the curb there, as there's many curbs in this circuit that you would easily spin out on in this game. especially in the last game I know that you were able to. And with the new curb and tyre model that's been adjusted for this game, it's even more of a caution or reinforcement just to be more wary and take it easier on your first lap, just to be able to set a lap time so you have that to base your next 2 laps off of. Looking through the driver grid now, and our teammate is currently beating us. He's almost 5 tenths up on us at the minute, so this next lap is going to be crucial to our success in getting into Q2. So let's hope for a better lap time this time, and we're able to see our delta this time as well, so hopefully that will give us more of a boost to push on and test the limits of how far we can push this car. Realistically, we should be beating the Williams, the Haas and the Alfa Romeo, and be getting into those Q2 positions, and if not, that's considered a failure in my eyes. Maybe not to my teammate, as let's be realistic, we are the fastest driver in this team, but nevertheless we should expect him to be on the cusp of Q2 as we come through the final bend now. 1.2 seconds up on my last lap time. As we said, the first lap time we were going easy, but this lap time we're pushing ourselves, trying to get into that Q2 position. Where do we come? We're P15 on the grid at the minute, so we're in Q2 safely with a car behind us at the minute. I did actually stay out for another lap straight after this one just to see if maybe some warmer wet tyres would fare out better in these wet conditions, but we just weren't able to get into our groove and set the lap time like we did in the last lap, as almost a tenth or 2 tenths down as we go into the final corner and slip it onto the gravel as we didn't get enough grip going into that final corner. And yeah, so we come in straight after that. However, we are still P15, so we've still got that position so far. With only 3 minutes remaining, there is still time for us to set another lap, so I think that is what we're going to do, as we would rather be safe than sorry. Even though we are 5 tenths up on Raikkonen at the minute, I don't think there is a chance of us being beaten here today, as we go through the final corner with 5 tenths down on our fastest lap time. So we're not going to set a faster lap time, we're not going to improve on our fastest lap time. So we've come across the line 5 tenths slower than we would have hoped for, and we managed to stay in P15, even though I don't show it on the screen here, but we were in P15 and Raikkonen didn't improve, or none of the drivers below me improved on their fastest lap time, so luckily we managed to get through by the skin of our teeth. But anyway, we rejoin in Q2, where we're used to this track by now, so we should be setting faster lap times than we did before, even though the weather hasn't changed yet. And I don't think it is in this qualifying session, even though the race looks like it's going to be sunny weather, which is relief, as we lock up on that little chicane there and slide through the right-hander as we come down into the final straight now, just proving how wet these conditions still are as we go across the line and manage to set a lap time just sub of 1:32, which is almost 5 tenths worse than our best lap time in Q1. So there is still ground to be made here in this Q2 session. Although having said that, we are still ahead of Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo, so by my standards we are where we should be placed in the grid. Going out into our final lap here in the Q2 session, as we left it late to make another lap, as we go into this left-hander and we spin on the second bend of this circuit, which is notorious for spinning. We just stacked the car in these wet conditions, which is so easily to do, and especially on that banked bend, just trying to get the power down when your tyres already heading for that corner. And in these wet conditions, it's never going to end well, and we finish our Q2 session disappointingly, not being able to set another lap time. We do manage to finish in P15 though, which is a plus. We managed to stay ahead of the Alfa Romeo, and yeah, disappointing one, but we'll head into the race now.
The Spanish Grand Prix has been a permanent fixture on the Formula One calendar for over 30 years now, and for good reason. Do you remember Michael Schumacher's absolute dominance here in that rain-soaked Grand Prix in 1996? That day he took his first ever victory for Ferrari, and we've had many more iconic moments since. It's a sellout crowd of 140,000 here today as we await lights out for the 730-metre sprint down to turn 1 of this 2.9-mile racetrack. Overtaking is challenging through these 16 corners, but there's still a lot of high-speed excitement to be found, including the flat-out turn 3 and the terrifying blind right of turn 9. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here today, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
But from the moment qualifying's over, you start to feel the adrenaline in your body build up and the buzz in your stomach as you anticipate the run down into turn 1. It's all a bit like going into battle, and the unknown situation makes you nervous. Those pre-race nerves are a good thing. The day you don't have them means that you don't care anymore. And of course you have to make sure that all the procedures are second nature to you, so that they're not taking up too much of your capacity.
Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's race. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and Valtteri Bottas will line up alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Verstappen, Perez, Charles Leclerc and Norris, Ricciardo, Sainz, Vettel and Fernando Alonso, Stroll, Tsunoda, Pierre Gasly and Ocon, Charles Raikkonen, George Russell and Antonio Giovinazzi, Mick Schumacher, Drugovich, Latifi and Nikita Mazepin. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
Now that we've got some points on the board, let's continue this form and aim for another top 10 finish.
Yes, Jeff, let's aim for another top 10 finish. So yeah, we can either go on from mediums to hards like we did in Bahrain, or we can go use the 2-stop and choose the soft to the mediums. I do end up flirting with the 2-stop for a little bit, as I tried to see if we can do 2 soft stints and 1 hard, but regardless, it only gave us a worse projected race time. So I think the 1-stop is the way forward. That way we could even maybe skip ahead of some of the cars in the top 10 if they actually go a bit slower, but we'll have to see in the race. So starting in P15, just behind the Alpine of Esteban Ocon, we go to 5 red lights of the Spanish Grand Prix, and we are underway here. We get a lot of wheel spin as we get bogged down at the start, so we have to use a bit of overtake to get past Gasly and maybe look to see if we can catch any cars napping at this first corner here. As Raikkonen overtakes us on the right hand side, we get boxed in going into the first corner, trying not to make any contact into the back of Stroll, so we have to lift off, meaning that rookie Mick Schumacher has an opportunity to come around the outside of us going into this long right-hander. We bang tyres as Raikkonen holds us up, bang our front tyres as well. It's all going off here, and now we're looking to see if we make the dive on Raikkonen going into the second long right-hander, trying to take a shorter inside route just so we can get a better exit and get our nose in front going into this next left-hander, as we nearly make contact with Stroll again, but we just about managed to slow the car down enough and get through that corner. But you can see on the screen I was checking the damage, and I was shocked that I didn't have any, because I was certain I would have made some with either Schumacher or Stroll, but regardless, it was impossible for me to even get any because car damage has been turned off for this race, which you can imagine my reaction when I found out to this. But nevertheless, we carry on as we try to make the late move on Stroll, as we almost go into the back of Gasly as well. But that was a brilliant move on Stroll right there. And as you see the replay now, we made the move so late that we actually would have gone into the back of Stroll if we carried on going, and if simulation damage was on, we would have ended our race right there. But we found our fortune in that one and managed to make the move under braking. But if there wasn't any traffic ahead of him, he would have used the racing line and sped away and gotten the accelerator quicker. But because there was, then we were able to make the move down the inside and catch him napping. But here's a replay at the start of the race, and Lewis Hamilton makes the move to the inside to get ahead of his teammate Bottas, who was in second place to begin with. So there's not been much change in the order of things. So the Mercedes cars lead the race with the 2 Red Bulls behind them, and eagle-eyed viewers would have seen that Norris got a great start to his race and managed to make the move down the inside on Charles Leclerc. So he's up into P5 at the minute, ahead of his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, who's doing much better than he was how he is doing in real life at the minute. So hopefully the McLaren cars can keep that form and maybe challenge Red Bull for that second place in the Constructors title. So yeah, here we are joined on to lap number 2. We make a horrendous exit on that uphill corner as we almost dip a tyre onto the gravel, which allows Stroll to make the dive down the outside. But because it is only lap number 2, Stroll can't use DRS as it isn't available to be used yet, which means he wasn't able to get the overspeed he needed to be able to complete the move. So we just about managed to do enough and hold him off on the inside. But coming on to lap number 3 now, Stroll is coming at us at a rate of knots. And now that DRS is available to be used, we are now more susceptible to the Aston Martin's power unit. But yellow flags behind me, and who is that off? I thought it was Stroll at the time, but it looks as though George Russell is out of the session. We go to see if there's any contact that's been made on the replay cameras. Just going into this first corner, did he make contact with the pass? No. It was just an engine failure, and that's so unfortunate for him, and it means that his race ends there. But I do feel sorry for George, because not just because I'm a Williams fan myself, but because on this year's game with the new settings we are able to get mechanical failures ourselves, which is a randomly generated problem just like it is for the AIs in this game. So just like we saw with George, we could be having the best race of our career so far and we could be hit with mechanical failure that would end our race, but we joined back on board and Stroll is making a dive down the inside. Now that he has that DRS, he's able to get the move done and he is the fastest car, let's be honest, so there's no real way to defend him on that long Spanish straight there. Maybe I allowed him too much room to work with going into that first corner, and maybe I could have done a bit of a better job at defending, but regardless, he is the fast car and I'm sure he would have overtaken me going into one of these next straights, especially with DRS, as we've seen how fast this Aston Martin car is in a straight line. And yeah, you can see we haven't found our groove on this circuit yet. We're struggling to hit the apexes and nail them correctly, and yeah, we're just not having a very good race as we almost overshoot that corner as we go into the chicane. We're sliding, slipping, going through it, and yeah, we're just not finding the right amount of grip that we need to. And now Raikkonen is hot on our tail with Schumacher right behind him. We're having to use overtake at the minute to keep up with Raikkonen and counteract his DRS at the minute, but even so he's got the overspeed to make the move, but we decided to brake early to try and get a better exit on these next two corners as we go into this long right-hander, trying to get on the inside line to get the advantage on this next corner. As now bum drafting Raikkonen, we're now side by side as going into this corner. We made a dive bomb on Kimi. He has to give us the room as he got the inside line, otherwise he would have ended up on the grass and we would have pushed him wide. So we managed to get that job done and can cement this P15 position for the minute. But if we're going to look to hold this position, or let alone catch up the Stroll, then we're going to need to find our composure and find our groove in this race. So knuckling down and focusing on our driving is the best thing we can do right now whilst we've got the clean air. But fast forwarding on to lap 13 now, as not much happened between then and lap number 5. All we did was knuckle down and focus on my driving like we said we were going to do, and we've managed to make 2 seconds on Raikkonen. However, Stroll has managed to make 9 seconds on me, so I don't think there's much chance of me catching up to him now or Gasly. Having said that, there are pit stops this lap, so is there a chance for me to make an undercut or overcut or even make some time on my opponents? We'll have to see going into this next lap. But as far as I know, no one has made a pit stop so far, so I think everyone is on the one stop, especially as it was a wet qualifying session. Most people will be making the one stop, going from mediums to hards, as the top 10 were able to choose their first choice of tyres, as normally with a dry qualifying session the top 10 would be on a used compound of tyre, whether it be soft or mediums, but they would have to start on that compound of tyre that they used in Q3. However, like today with a wet qualifying session, this means that the top 10 get a free choice of tyres, and this is a massive disadvantage to the likes of me and the rest in the bottom 12 or so, who would look to use the pit stops as an advantage on the faster cars to see if they're able to get points that way. But in this sort of session, it seems like everyone is doing the one stop, so this hinders our race massively as we're not able to capitalise on the point system that way, and we're going to have to use our driving skill and the power of the car to push us forward in this race. Coming out of the pits now, I've only just noticed that Raikkonen came in at the same time as us, so I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse, but we're not able to make time on him with the pit stops, but at the same time he's not able to make time on us in the pit stop, so he's not able to make the undercut or overcut on us that way. But looking on to leaders now, and Valtteri Bottas is in for his pit stop. Hamilton has already made his pit stop, so he's coming around the final chicane right now. Let's see where they come to. Is Bottas going to make the jump on Hamilton, or is Hamilton going to keep his advantage in the race and make the undercut work here in the Spanish Grand Prix? Let's see, coming down to the pit straight now. Bottas is ahead of Hamilton coming out of the pits, going into this final first corner, and Bottas is ahead of Hamilton by almost a second. So the overcut, has worked a dream here in Spain. Nevertheless, though, Mercedes cars are still 1 and 2 on the grid, with both Red Bulls still behind them, with Verstappen and Perez holding out P3 and P4. But now we're joined back on board with myself, and we're going on to lap 16 here. We're still in P19, so we're just about to catch up with the cars yet to make pit stops, and we're just about to see whereabouts that places us in the run and the grand scheme of things. Mick Schumacher is still behind us, but can he get the jump on Raikkonen, who was in front of him to begin with? And Raikkonen makes a beautiful move around the outside, managed to keep his position and use the overspeed that he had going down the straight to make that position work and make the move work, sorry. So not much to change in the bottom half of the table. Stroll is still ahead of me by a good 12 seconds now, so if anything, he's made time on me, but at the same time, I've made time on Raikkonen and on the cars behind myself. We've managed to put just over a 3-second gap between me and the cars behind me, and that just goes to show that focusing on our own driving and utilising this clean air that we've got to our advantage has worked very well here in Spain, as we're still setting green sectors now. So hopefully we can keep this up and hold this position until the end of the race. 2 laps later and we're doing just that. We're still setting green sectors in sector 1 and we're keeping Raikkonen at bay 3 seconds behind us, but however Stroll has made some time on us as we get a massive twitch of oversteer as we almost go into the barrier and lose our back end almost end our race. Maybe if simulation damage was on, we would have lost our back wheel, but I think even on the replay it looks like we just about skimmed the wall there, so I think we would have been just about fine and we managed to carry on up with our racing. But that means that Raikkonen has made up a second or just over a second on us, and more crucially it means that we don't have that much of a comfort cushion between us and Raikkonen, so we have to work hard and regain that time that we just lost. Having said that though, we almost lose half a second to Kimi behind us as we get a horrible exit on that last corner, which allows Kimi to be able to get in within that 1 second margin to be able to get the DRS on me on these straights and crucially try and make an overtake on me, which is not what we wanted, having been 3 seconds up on him. So we may be finally about to see some sort of a battle on lap 24 after not being battling at any cars since the first few laps of this race. But as I was speaking, Lewis Hamilton sets a new fastest lap, so maybe he's finding the right sort of race pace to be able to overtake his teammate Bottas for the race lead. Having said that though, we're having to let the faster cars through now, and we've got Bottas right behind us on our tail, so luckily we're on the main straight to be able to let him by and not lose much time to him, and hopefully the faster cars can hold up Raikkonen, the likes of Raikkonen and Schumacher, to be able to give us a bit of a cushion. As we are seeing right now, Raikkonen is now 2 seconds behind us and Schumacher 3 seconds behind us, so this segment of traffic might just hold them up enough to be able to cement our P15 position. Luckily enough, Hamilton comes at us on the second DRS straight, so we're able to let him by going into this corner. We brake a bit earlier to give him the dive bomb and give him the room to work with, just so that we can play fair and not lose too much time on the cars behind us, whilst letting Lewis by and letting him go for the race lead. But nevertheless, we skip forward onto lap 32 where Valtteri Bottas wins the Spanish Grand Prix and takes home another victory for Mercedes, and Lewis Hamilton picks up that second place as he wasn't able to catch up Valtteri Bottas after that pit stop. And finally Max Verstappen rounds off that podium position, but we managed to take a respectable P15 and we managed to hold off Raikkonen to the bitter end.
And bring it home.
Another Spanish Grand Prix is over, and what a special race it was. Anthony, tell me, what was it that helped them achieve this success?
Well, I think it was clear what the main contributing factor out on the track was today: speed. I know it sounds like an obvious thing to say, Crofty, but fast cars win races, and we saw that today with our winner.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot, a well-earned victory for Mercedes.
So the Mercedes managed to take the top spots here in Spain, and Red Bull round off the top 4. A bit of an underwhelming performance and a race day for myself and for Shoggz GP. My teammate coming home in P19 only managed to gain 1 position in that race, and to be honest, it was a very boring race overall really. Not only with the car damage setting change, which made this race a disaster from the beginning, but also just with my performance and with the going from the wet qualifying session to the dry race meant that there wasn't going to be much of an upset with the leaders. So yeah, let's hope for a better race next round, where we're in one of the all-time classic circuits, Monaco. So if you did by any chance like this video, please make sure to hit the like button down below, and if you want to join me for the next round, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. So see you then.